Good morning, everyone, and let's begin our lecture session for today. So this is week 3, and I believe you guys have already done the exercise for the last week, and you should be a little familiar with the code blocks and C programming. All right. So for today, this week, let me share my screen. Okay, so for today, we will continue on our chapter control statements. And on week 3, so since last week, I've actually covered up to switch case statement. So we have gone through the if else, the multi-selection. I've shown some demo in the lecture session. So we have gone through up to switch case. You can always try to do some of the exercise in the slides. So for today, we are controlling our control statement chapter by starting with looping or repetition. Okay. When we say loop or repetition, it is a process where we want to execute certain statement or certain task repetitively or continuously. It's not just like one time. So we want to do it more than one time. Okay. So these are the things that you can read on the slide. Of course, same as last week, I will not spend too much time on slide. I will go straight into uh, a run through how while works, then how does do while works, and how for works. Okay. So when we talk about loop and repetition for your course, these are the 3 things that you will learn. So using while loop, then using do while loop, and using for loop. So what's the difference? Okay, this is something that I want you guys to take note. Okay, when we say while loop, we do this or use this when we want to loop, I would say not a fixed amount. That means we don't know. Just remember, this is how you determine. Say if you get a question for your exam, it given you a case study, a question that you have to get multiple inputs or you have to repeat certain times. Okay. When you read the question, you'll be wondering that, okay, which looping should I use? While loop, do while loop, for loop. Okay. Here's the tips. If you are given a fixed number of looping, okay, if you are given a fixed number of looping, that means you have to ask this 10 times. Say, example, you have to ask it 10 times, or you have to ask this particular task or question 15 times. So if you are given a fixed number, or you know you only need to do this number of times, you have to use for loop. Okay? Let me see if I can... Okay, so you have to use for loop. If you are given or you know that there's only certain number of times you have to run, then use for loop. Okay. If you are not sure or the question doesn't specify how many times you have to do the looping, but they will of course let you know what's the condition for you to do the looping and when you should stop, then you will use while loop. So please remember this, guys, because it's very important. Because a lot of students actually do make mistake on this in terms of selecting which looping should they use. So for loop is used when you know or you want to do certain number of times, which is fixed. You know it's not going to change. I have to do like 5 times. Then go with for loop. But if you're given condition, but you're not told or you know that there is no a fixed number of times to loop, then you will use while loop. Okay, so that's the difference for loop and while loop. Okay, now here's a special case. How about do while? Okay, do while is when you have to execute your codes at least once, even though the condition is not met, which means you have a terminating criteria or a condition, because while loop have their condition. In order to do that, it needs to fulfill certain conditions. So do while is that even though it doesn't fulfill the condition, it will run or execute at least once. So that's when you'll use do while. Okay, so maybe you guys right now is trying to imagine, okay, oh, I don't understand, so I can't imagine that. Okay, don't worry. I'll be going through the code blocks to show you an example. What's the difference between while, do while, and for loop? Okay, so how to execute the while statement? This is the syntax, or this is the template for you to do. Okay, you can read this. You can look at the flowchart, and there's some example. This is for you to try on yourself. This is syntax for do while. Okay, I'm going to leave this all for you guys to explore yourself, because I'm going to give you guys straight an example. So for loop, yep, this is the syntax or the template, how it works, example code, and also an exercise. Okay, so and then we will look into nested loops, which means nested loop works on all the three: while, do while, and for. I will show an example. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, so that's the class for today. Okay, so now let's go into these three things: while, do while, for loop, and then we will look at nested. So I'll open up the code blocks and let's take a look on how it works. Don't worry much about the codes that I'm typing. You take a look, spend your time trying to understand what I'm explaining, because I will share a video after our class, so you can always refer to the codings. Okay, so at this moment I want you guys to understand how looping works, because this looping, you will be using this a lot, which means on your array chapter. Let's see. So on your modular programming, you will use a lot of control statement, which is the if else, uh, switch case, things like that. But mostly it's if else condition will be a lot. At the same time, you will do a lot of looping. Same goes to arrays. Arrays, this is very important, because array, you are doing storage or you're storing information. So you will definitely need looping. Okay, so these are, I would say, quite a little bit difficult topics to understand. So let's master our looping for today. So for today, there'll be three things that I'll be showing, which is, first we will look into while loop, okay, how it works. Then we will look into do while loop, what's the difference, like I mentioned just now, and also on for loop. So I will start with the basic. Let's go for while loop. Okay, assume you have a variable x. Oh no, let me make it a bit nicer. Integer number. And then I would like to assign this variable number with a value, say 5. Okay. And then now I want to do a looping. Okay. For while loop, let's ignore this. We do while loop first. So for while loop, the syntax is while, a bracket, and then execute whatever code inside the while loop. So how it works for while loop is basically you have to type this while, and what's the condition? This is the condition that will keep everything inside here running. If this condition is false, you will not run your codes inside here. It will skip. Okay. So let's see a condition. While the value or the variable number is less than 10. So this is my condition for the looping, which is as long the number variable, the value is less than 10. That means while the condition of this is true, which is the number value is less than 10, then I want it to repeat some lines here. So what I'm going to repeat, okay, let me go with a simple code so that you guys can follow. So I would like to print that I'm in this loop. Okay, I put a new line. So I'm going to run this. Okay, and let's take a look at the output. What can you see?
It keep repeating non-stop.
It keep repeating non-stop. Why? Why? If you ask the question, if you notice, this is it keep going. This is an infinite loop. Why? Because while number is less than 10, I will repeat this. The statement will repeat. So currently, your number is equal to 5. But your condition says that if it's less than 10, do this. So is it true? Yes, it's true. 5 is less than 10. So it will keep doing this non-stop. So this will never end. So this is what I meant by while loop, when you don't have a fixed number of times you want to loop or repeat, then we will use while loop. Okay, so now, of course, this is not a good practice because this is never going to stop. So we have to force terminate. So things you have to be careful when you do while loop. You need to set a criteria so that your condition will repeat to certain number of times that you want, and then it has to terminate. Okay, so that we don't get infinite loop. So what I will do here is, for this example, I'm going to make number to keep increment or to add 1. So number equals to number plus 1. So when I do this, what happens is when the loop starts, it will print this, and then the value number will increase 1. So it will repeat until when the number becomes equal to 10, this loop will terminate. So let's take a look. Okay, if you notice now, it's no longer doing infinite looping. It just goes like 5 times and then it terminates. But you might be wondering, okay, why 5 times? Okay, because number keep changing on every loop till the time that this becomes false. So when this is false, this looping will terminate. So let's have a clearer look what I mean by the number changes. So what we will do, so we'll put this, I'm in this loop, or oh no, let's leave it there. I'm in this loop. Number is currently equal to, so we want to show or see what's the number. Okay, that's a new line. This is to key in the variable, to insert the variable. So which variable are we going to insert? Number, because we want to see what's the value of the number. So now we will run this. Okay. So you can see on the first, currently number is equals to 5. So when we check, is 5 less than 10? Yes, it's true. So you will run this line. So when you run that line, it comes out. I'm in this loop, number is currently 5. And then what happens is that we increment the number. Number equals to number plus 1, which is 5 plus 1, so number will become 6. So this variable has changed to 6. And then it will go back into the loop. That's why you can see number is currently 6. And then it will go here, it will become 7. Is 7 less than 10? True. So it will go in, it will display. It's 7. And then you make 7 to 8. You come back here, you check the looping. Is 8 less than 10? Yes. So you display, it comes out 8. So 8 becomes 9. And then 9 comes here. Is 9 less than 10? True. So you display 9. And now 9 has become 10. So when 9 becomes 10, you go back. It's a looping, eh? So it goes back. Is 10 less than 10? No, because we want number to be less than 10. So maximum is 9. So now when number is 10, it stops. So this while loop stops. Okay, that's why you can see it only goes from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so this is for while loop where you actually run based on the condition. So if I put while number is, let's say, if I put while number is 100, it starts from 5. So what happens? Let's take a look. It will loop from 5 to 99. It starts from 5. Oops. And it goes up to 99. So this is the condition to terminate the loop. So in while loop, always remember your condition, there should be a condition to check true or false. And you have to make sure the value or the variable that you're going to check in the condition requires to change. It doesn't matter you want to plus 1 or minus 1 or plus 10. That's of course another story lah. But you have to make sure that that condition or the variable involved in the condition has to change, or else it will become an infinite loop. Okay, so that's on while looping. I won't go the very complex example. So I want you guys to understand how the looping works. So now on while, next we will take a look. If you guys have any question, please feel free to stop me in between. If you want me to re-explain ke guna another example or something like that, yeah, please stop me. So now, let's take a look on do while. Just now, we already look at while. Let's take a look in do while. But before we look in do while, in order for me to show you why do while means that you run at least once, even though your condition is not correct. So I will show you guys by going back to the example here, 10. And I'm going to purposely put the value 11. So is this condition true? No, it's not true. So this looping not supposed to happen, or it shouldn't run. Okay, so let's take a look. So it didn't run. So since the condition is false, this looping didn't run. Okay, now when we do or convert this looping to do while, it will at least run once. What do I mean? Like this. So this is for while. I'm not going to delete this so that you guys can actually see that. So I'm going to comment that. And I'm going to do a new example for condition do. So for looping do while, you just write the syntax do. You guys can check on the slides if you are curious about the syntax. Yep, it's here. Okay. So you type in do. This is what you want to do. While, this is where your condition comes in. So the difference between while loop and do while is you'll have this syntax do, but you won't have any semicolon here, same as this. But you have your semicolon at the end of the while. All right. Make it bigger a little. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm still using the same. I am still going to use the same condition. Okay, I'll put it here. The same one. So if you can see, it's the same. And I would like to do exactly the same as above. So this from line 10 to line 15, and this from line 17 to line 23 is the same, which is I'm going to print out you are in the loop and what's the number, and I'm going to increment the number. So everything is the same. The only difference is this is using while loop and this is using do while loop. Okay. Remember just now when I launched this, there's literally no output because 11 is definitely bigger than 10, right? Okay. So now let's take a look on do while. If you see the output, it runs this first. I'm in this loop. Number is currently 11. So it do or it does this first, even though the condition is not true. So that's the purpose of do while. You run it first and then you check the condition. So if you look at here, you get to see the number is 11, but it will not loop because 11 is not less than 10. So that's the difference between while loop and do while loop. So any questions, guys? Hi.
No questions, sir.
Okay. So while and do while. Okay. Since you guys got no question, yeah. Okay, let me be the student. Let me ask some question. Um, so my question is, since while and do while, it looks the same. The only difference is that do while, yeah, it displays first before it checks the condition. So the question is, when are we supposed to use do while? And when are we supposed to use the while? So for that question, here's the answer. If you have something that you require the user to select first, or for them to input first before you check is it true or wrong, then you use do while. But if you just have to do a direct checking and your input is already there, in our case, input is already there, so you can just go with a while. But say if I want to get the input from user, what I will do is basically, I'll remove this. So currently this variable has no value, and I want the user to key in the value. I think let me keep this so that you guys can refer later. Okay, I'm going to do this do while, but I want to get the user to actually key in the value. Okay, so please key in a number. Okay, so once I display that, keep a space here so the cursor will blink on the right so user can key in there. And how am I going to take the value from the user? By scanf. Okay, so I am going to accept an integer, and I'm going to store. Okay, every time you use scanf, do not forget ampersand. I'm going to store in this variable number. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use this increment condition because I want to loop it as many times as the user key in. So the difference between this is right now, I don't have the value. I need the value. So I get user to do this. And every time the user key in a number, I will check. If the user key in less than 10, I want the user to keep key in a new number. Okay? So to make things nice, let's put a new line here. Okay? So now I'll run this. Oops. Close it first. So it's going to ask me, please key in a number. So this is how do while works. It does first because then only it checks. So if I put 5, please key in a number. Why? Because the condition states as long the number value, the variable number, the value is less than 10, I'll keep doing this. So if I put 7, I'll still get 9, still get 2. So as long I'm typing anything less than 10, including negative 34, it will keep repeating this until I put a number which is 10 or more. So I put 77. Then it stops. So this is where you use do while, because you need an input from the user before you terminate or do the looping. Then you use do while. But if you already have the value for that variable, like earlier, then you don't need to do while. You can go straight with while. Okay, so here's one example on do while. Here's another example which I believe most of you will use for your project. It's something we call menu. Okay, I'm going to keep that, but let me copy this again. I'll put somewhere up here so you guys can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a menu. Select a menu. Okay, and then put a new line. And what's the menu? Number 1 for food. Number 2 for drinks. Number 3 for dessert. Okay. So make it look like a menu. Okay. So I'm going to display this. This on the first line. And what are the options? 1, 2, 3. And then it terminates the line. So I need user to select. So no choice. So variable choice. So I'm changing this to choice. So I want user to select 1, 2, 3. So this is the menu 1, 2, 3. There's no option 4. There's no other option. So I want to repeat this so that the user only do this. So what's the condition should I put here so that this will repeat if the user decided to put something like 0 or 4. Okay, I'm going to ask questions since you guys are so quiet. So let's say who's a lucky person today. Muhammad Zaidi Fahmi. Oh, Muhammad Zurida already rescue you with some answer. So number less than 4. Let's test. So when we put number less than 4, it will keep repeating this. But no Zuri, sebab kita tak nak. We want that to repeat this if they select it wrongly. We want them to select 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 or 3. So if they select 1, 2 or 3, we don't want to repeat this. We know they already input the correct one. Okay, back to tadi. Muhammad Zaidi Fahmi. Yeah, here's a question for you. What condition should I put in here? Muhammad Zaidi, ada tak? Oh, let's see. Number is more or equal to 1 and number is less than 4. Okay, let's try. First kita try yang Muhammad Zuri tadi. Okay, if number less than 4, what happens? Oh, sorry, choice. So while the selected choice is less than 4, yang ni Muhammad Zuri tadi kan? Okay, let's run this. Okay, so this is the current output for the do. Okay, and kita ikut tadi statement from Muhammad Zuri, number is less than 4. So now if I select, I want to select drinks. Okay, it still asks me to select. Is it? I already selected. So supposingly, this condition is not accurate. So this is what we don't want. Okay, never mind. Let's close this. And then we try Muhammad Zaidi tadi, where number is, or in our case, choice. So your one is choice is more or equal to 1. More or equal to 1. So, and choice is less than 4. Okay. Let's run this. So if I put 1, it still repeats, 2 it still repeats, 3 it repeats. Okay. No. What we're going to do now is we want it to be opposite, which means if the user actually select it correctly, we don't want to repeat. So we want to check condition that is outside of this 1, 2, 3. So which means if choice is less than 1, then we want to repeat. Okay. Or I'm not using n because I think you guys already know about the operators. If n, both has to be true. Okay. I'm using or because it's below 1 and above 3. And choice is more than 3. Okay, this is the condition, which means if the user select 0, I want to repeat because it's wrong. If the user select 4, it's not in the menu, so I want it to repeat. So this is the proper condition. Okay. When I run this, select a menu. So the user decided to select 4. So you say it's wrong. Please select a menu. So if they keep selecting anything that's not in the menu, it will repeat. So it is going to repeat until the user select the accurate listing, which is food, drinks, or dessert. So let's test. Food. And then it stops. So as long the user keep keying wrong number or wrong input, you will keep asking them for the menu. All right. So let's test again. So that's for number 1. If I select drinks, see, it's correct, so it won't repeat. And if I select dessert, it's correct, so it won't repeat. So this is where you can use do while, where you want to pop out the menu, you want the user to select, but you want to make sure that they key in the correct value. So as long as a wrong value, you keep looping it. Okay, so this is for while loop. Do while and while loop is you repeat when you don't know the number of times. All right. So any question? Muhammad Zuri, use for, you mean this while loop? Okay, this while loop and do while you will use when, like I mentioned, if you don't know how many times you want to loop or how many times you want to repeat, then you will go with do while or while. But we will use do or do while if there is something that you want to display first, then only you check the condition later. It is different, compared to while loop. In while loop, you check the condition first. If the condition is wrong, you will not execute the line. So that's the difference. So you will be using do while a lot on your project because you might have like menu, something like this. Why? Because after you do while, you get the user to select, then you will play with the switch. This is last week's lecture. So then what you do, since the user already key in the correct value, then you execute this. So switch choice for case 1. We have 3 cases. Case 1 food, case 2 drinks, case 3 dessert. And then you execute whatever you want to execute. Okay. Because I'm going to show just example. So you selected food. Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
can we put which case in a which case?
You mean which case out?
If we select food and there's another case in that case one.
Oh, in case 1, another case inside.
Yeah.
Usually no.
Okay.
Unless if you want to use another switch case from the case 1, can. That's where you will use this one, modular programming, which is, okay, let me show you. Okay, it's a very good question. I understand what you mean because you want to break down your menu, right? After food, you want them to be able to select like, okay, what type of foods?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that is where you will use function. Before that, let me show this first. Yeah, good question. So this is for drinks. And this is dessert, right? Okay, let me just demo this first. Oops. Why terminated? Okay. So we know just now that this do while does this. If it's wrong, it will repeat, which means let's start, try 5, select a menu. So now I'm selecting drinks. Okay. So what happens here when I click 2, it will check here. Condition is false, so it will move to the next line 17. So and then when it goes to line 17, it checks. It switches between your cases. Which one did you pick? So I selected 2. So it runs in the case you selected drink. Okay. Now coming back to the question your friend asked. Okay. What if I want to put another case inside? Okay. This is where in your case, what you will do is basically we call something which is modular function, which you say input menu food. Okay. Sorry. Food. Okay. So when the case 1 is selected, you will call this function, which is input menu food. And in this function, which is usually somewhere we do here, right? Sorry, let me just copy this. This is something you will learn in your modular. It's not in this chapter yet. This is how it actually works. Let me just put it up. And here, since your friend asked the question, so let me just show you. Declare integer food choice. So select a menu in food. Burger, salmon. Sorry, I'm just scrapping some things. Beef. Okay. So what's going to happen is once I'm here, it's going to go here. It's going to get this option, and then I'm going to do another case. As your friend mentioned, how about if I want to ask more, right? So it will go back 1, 2, 3, and of course, uh, this is no longer. Oops, it's gonna be. Okay, so let's take a run. Actually, this is not a proper way to do module function lah. You have to do prototype, then you have to do your case, your body, and then only you move into the function call, which is here. Okay, don't worry, that one you will learn in. Okay, so if I select food, it will go to inside here. See, select a menu in food, burger, salmon, or beef, and then it goes continue. So if you want to use a switch case inside the case, you can. Rather than putting this, actually this is the best way to write lah. You can actually copy the entire of this and you can put in a bracket, curly bracket, and put it in here and run. But it is not recommended. So the best is to use modular function to call in. Sorry, I should zoom this. Yeah. To call in whatever that you want to do inside the case. Okay. So yeah, thank you for the good question. So this one, don't worry, you will learn this in modular programming. Okay. For now, not yet. So that's how it works. Okay, so that's on while and do while. Okay, now let's go into the third of looping, which is for loop. So you already see while, you already see do while and for. Okay, remember that earlier I said you'd use for loop when you know exactly how many times you want to loop or repeat. So if you know exactly how many times, then we will use for loop. So how do we do for loop? Okay, let's take a look. Hmm. Okay, I think I'm just going to save this and let me create a new project. Oh no, just a new file. Okay, libraries include standard output.h. Sorry guys. Okay, and then include standard library. I like to use void main. Okay, I'm gonna save this on desktop and for loop dot c. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to show for loop when we know the number of times we want to repeat or loop. Before that, what's the syntax for loop? Okay, this is something that a little bit difficult than while because you need to remember this. There are three things: initialization, the condition test statement checking, and also the incrementation or is increment and decrement both can work. Okay, what do I mean? Okay, let's take a look at here. Okay, when you use for loop, there is a condition you have to put inside here, and whatever inside here, it will loop according to this condition. So there are three things. One, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay. This one you have to memorize. First will be your initialization or the variable that you want to start with for you to check. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare them. I just declare inside here. For loop, we can declare straight inside here. Integer count. Okay, this will be easier. Count equals to 0. Okay. So I'm declaring a variable called count with the value 0. So this is your initialization. Okay. The second part is the condition. In order for you to loop, you want to run all these things, what condition does it require to fulfill? Okay. Since I mentioned just now that for loop is used when you know exactly how many times you want to loop, we use for loop, right? So this is where you will set. Okay. Integer count equals to 0. I want this loop to run 10 times. So what's my condition? In order for it to run 10, as long count is less, is less than 10. So this is my condition. Count is 0, count less than 10. So I know I will loop 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up to 9, which is 10 times. If I want to make your understanding easier, I want to loop 1 to 10. So I start with 1 and less or equal to 10. So I will loop 10 times. Okay. Now, this is your initialization on your left, your condition on your in the center, and the increment or decrement is on the right. Okay, if you notice the example just now, remember I used number equals to number plus 1. In here, you will be doing the same. Count equals to count plus 1. Okay, so this is your increment or your decrement. So it will loop 10 times. Let me show you. Mm, Count is equal to, put the value here, and I want a new line. Okay, the value that I want to send is count. So here's the variable, and I'll run this. Okay, if you take a close look, okay, this is for loop. You initialize first the variable. This one can be anything. It can be any variable you like. Okay, you initialize it. It can be 0. It can be any number. Okay, then you put in the condition on your second. This is your first part. This is your second part. Your condition that it requires to fulfill. The third part is the increment or decrement. So count is 1 because it starts with 1. Is 1 less than 10? True. So it will display 1, and then 1 will become 2. Then it goes up. Is 2 less than 10? Yes. 2 will become 3. But when it goes in, it will display 2. That's why it's here. And then now it becomes 3. So it goes back to the for loop. Is 3 less than 10? Yes, it's true. So it will display 3, which is here. And then the 3 will plus to 4. So it will go up again. 4, 5, 6, until 10. So when count equals to 10, is it less or equal to 10? True. So you will display count 10. And now count will become 11. So when it comes back here, is 11 less or equal to 10? No. So for loop will terminate. So for loop is for fixed number of times. Okay. So if you know how many times you want to loop or repeat, please use for loop. Okay. Here's another shortcut. You can also, there's another way. If you don't want to declare inside here, you can do it here. Integer count. So you don't have to put it here. This is where you initialize. Okay. Another method, Remember I write count equals to count plus 1. This is too long. We don't usually do that. If you remember the part of operators, do you know plus plus and minus minus? Plus plus basically it increments, minus minus or negative negative it will decrement. So this is another way of writing. If you run, it will be exactly the same. So here's a question for you guys. When do we use for loop? Okay, I'll refresh a little bit. Remember just now I said that if you don't know how many times to repeat, use the while or do while. If you know how many times to repeat, you know, then use for loop. Okay, for loop is usually used when you want to do something like array. This part. Okay. On this chapter, array requires you to store or save information like a database. So it's more than one values. So array is usually a fixed size. You will know exactly how big is your storage for your data. So that is where when you want to go through your data to retrieve or to save, you will use for loop, because for loop is meant for you to traverse inside in a fixed number of repetitive or yeah, fixed number of times lah for you to repeat. Okay, so we have already covered this tree. Now the final part, sorry, it's taking a little bit extra time. The final is nested. So what does it mean by nested? Of course, you can go through your slides. There's already details, but let me show you in coding. When we talk about nested, it's basically having the loop. Doesn't matter if it's while, do while, or for. You have the loop inside of the loop. What do I mean? Is this. You already have a for loop there. Now you have another for loop inside the for loop. This is called nested. It can go multiple levels. Okay, it doesn't matter. The more you go, it's already more than one is already considered nested. Okay, so for today's example, I'm not going to go too complex. So I'm just going to go one level inside. And here's an example that I'm going to show. You might use this for your array where you have. Actually, I want to draw here, but yeah. You will have, you know, the table which you have x-axis and y-axis. I hope you guys can imagine it. X and Y. So you have data like a matrix. So you want to go through the rows and you want to go through the columns. So you can use the nested for loop. So how does nested for loop works? So I'm going to change this. Let's assume we go by row first. And then we go by column. So for the first loop, we're going to loop the row. Row 1, I don't want to put too many. Just going to keep 5. Row 1 to row 5. Okay. And then I want to loop on column. Okay, coming back to this for loop as 3. Do not forget. 1, 2, 3. This will be your initialization. So column equals to 1. Okay. This will be your condition. You want to check for column. Let's assume it's a matrix 5 by 5. So column also has 5 columns. Okay. And then column plus plus. So this is actually like a 5 by 5 box or Excel. Okay. So we want to go through each of it. We want to go by row. For first row, we want to go all the 5 column. Second row, all the columns and things like that. So how to visualize this is by outputting it. Which row are we? Okay. So this is for inside the loop of row. And then I want to know which column am I right now. So new line. Yeah, this one I think we don't need new line. Okay, so now I'm going to run this and you'll be able to see how does nested for loop works. So this is how nested for loop works. First, you will run on the outer loop, which is your row. Your row is 1. Okay, now row is 1. So when it comes in, is row is less or equal to 5? True. 1 is less or equal to 5. So it will print out what row you are, which is now row 1. Okay. And then it will go into the nested for loop. And here, your column is now 1. So when you display column is 1. But this is the trick that most students tend to make mistake. If you look at this output, what will you notice is the inside loop will run complete, which means from column 1 to column 5. If you notice, column 1 to column 5. It will complete everything before it terminates here and go to the outer loop. Okay. So for row 1, you repeat column 1 to 5. When this for loop completes, then it will continue the outer for loop, which is outside from the nested. So it will run row equals to 2. And it will repeat the inside for loop 5 times for row 2. And then when this thing completes, it goes out again. It goes for row 3. Because you have to remember, your outer for loop will repeat 5 times. But now it's on 3. So it will do 1 to 5. And then it will continue again 1 to 5. And then up to the 5th, it will go 1 to 5. And now when it finishes here, it goes out. Row is equals to 6. So is 6 less or equal to 5? No. So the moment it's false, this outer loop will terminate. Okay. So this is an example of nested for loop. Okay. So this is the same. If you use on while, it's also the same. So you have your condition of while inside your while. All right. So that's on nested for loop and nested loops. You can check. There are already examples in the slides. Okay. So feel free to go through it. So basically, students, yep, that's all for your lecture for today. So I've covered your entire looping, which is, yep, we have covered while, do while, for, and also nested. So a quick recap, you only use while when you don't know how many times to repeat, then use while. You use for when you know certain number of repetition or certain number of looping, then use for. You use do while when you want to execute the code first before checking the condition. This one is no, you check the condition. If the condition is false, you don't execute at all. But this one, you execute first, then you check condition. Okay? So, yep, that's all for the lecture for today. We have completed chapter control statements. Yep, this is done. Hopefully you guys can spend some time. If you're still blur in terms of like variable declaration, scanf, printf, yes, I want you guys to please refer back to this where you have the variables, integer. Example like just now that I was using operators. Yep, you can check here. the plus plus, minus minus. Yep, increment and decrement that I did just now. Count and choice plus plus. Where is it? Let me see my code again. Yep, row plus plus, column plus plus. You can also do this. Column minus minus, a row minus minus, and column minus minus. But if you do minus minus, basically it becomes opposite. You start with 5. And then you put this in 1. And you will change as long it's more. It's basically mirror lah. You mirror it back. If you use minus minus, you mirror it back. See? It starts with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Same goes to this. So this is for decrement, minus minus. But you have to be careful with your condition. If you make a mistake here, this loop might not run properly. Okay? So those are, yep, on increment, decrement. Here's where the operators that I used just now, and or, which is, where was the code just now? Oh, it's on another project. Okay, so if you still want to refresh your knowledge on the C basics, yes, please go through these slides. I mean the videos. Okay, so yep, that's all then.